Welcome back to Week 3 NFL DFS Slate Breakdown. For the main slate, we're going to go over both DraftKings and FanDuel, look into both of them, figure out some pivots, some high-end spots, high-owned spots we want to target, as well as low-owned. Now, before we get into it all, come join us at LineStar. It's $39.99 per month, gets you access to everything we do. All the props, all the DFS, you get it all. We also have a free 7-day trial. Just go through the app stores if you've never used us before, either Android or iOS, and you can get free 7-day trial. Now, let's get into the slate. Also, all subscriptions get you both apps and website. I don't even know if I've ever said that before, but I want to emphasize that because it is a nice little feature. Now, let's get into the slate. Let's see what we can break into. We got DraftKings here. We got FanDuel here. I'm going to be pivoting back and forth, trying to streamline the show to get it done a little bit quicker than we have been, but still get through all of the information. And there's a lot. All right. So first, just game level, whole tournament level talk. There are only a handful of games over a 45-point total. Houston, Minnesota, Eagles, Saints, Ravens, Cowboys, Lions, Arizona. And then if you're on FanDuel, there's the Chiefs at Falcons. Those are the only games with over a 45 total. Generally, you want to focus on those games. Another aspect that I like to look at is what games could go the fastest. I think the fastest pace of play is likely going to be Chicago and Indianapolis. So Bears at Colts. That game could have the most plays in it. Plays obviously breed fantasy points, so it is interesting to look through some of those guys. Now, there's not a ton in that game that I like, but we got to kind of look at that because there is potential there. Next, Cowboys versus Ravens. It's another game that is one of the faster paced games. It's also one of the higher total games. So we really need to key into that one a little bit here. And then Atlanta KC, if you're on FanDuel, that is one of the faster paced games. And then the third fastest paced game for DraftKings is Houston, Minnesota. That is one that I am personally pretty interested in for this. And we'll go over that, throughout today's little session here. All right. So high-owned quarterbacks. We got Derek Carr. Carr's been absolutely crushing it. He's only 5,800. He has 21 and 23 in his two games. He's at 5,800. Both of these are, first one was 3 touchdowns, but only 200 yards. The game was over. They didn't need him. And then the second game, 243 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then a rushing touchdown. So he's had good success, but he still hasn't had a huge throwing game. I think there is potential for that, and we're in a game that very, very possible. The Eagles have looked pretty bad on defense, and this Saints offense has looked amazing. Now, who knows if this Saints offense is going to keep looking like this, but for now, I think you kind of got to ride with it, and I don't mind having some Derek Carr, but I really don't love almost 20% owned Derek Carr. Now, I'm interested. I'm in a little bit, but I do have my reservations with going super chalky Carr, but at 5,800, he's interesting. Jalen Hurts next, 7,300, just on the other side of that, and he's less owned. I would much prefer Jalen Hurts in this situation. The fact is that he can just rush for 2 touchdowns and he's going to just blow Carr's score away. Yeah, he's more expensive, but I don't mind, say, going Jalen Hurts with Dallas Goedert and then have Rashid Shaheed or Olave and Kamara coming back or something if you really want to attack the game. I think there's a lot of different ways to attack this game. You only really need one other pass catcher with Jalen Hurts. And the other thing is that when they have a big piece to their offense get hurt, what generally happens with them is the target tree just gets smaller. So you know where the ball is going. Barkley's going to get a little more. Devonta Smith is going to get a little more love. Dallas Goedert's going to get a little more love. And those are going to be the three main spots that it goes, instead of also getting split by A.J. Brown. So I think it's a little easier from a stacking standpoint if you do want to go Hurts. I do prefer Hurts over Derek Carr. Kyler Murray, 6,900. I don't mind it. He's looked great so far. He's adding in, 50-plus rushing yards a game. The ceiling is there. There's also the potential that the Lions just get up to a big lead and Kyler just has to sling it. And if that's the case, there's big time upside. So I don't mind going Kyler whatsoever. They did put up 28 in the first game, put up 41 in the second game. He is capable, and the offense is capable of putting up a big score. Baker Mayfield, 9% owned. Last higher owned guy we're going to go over. I don't really love this spot for him. Denver Broncos defense is going to be solid, but I just don't see this being a game that Baker has to go nuts. And I think the most likely outcome is one of those high teens, low 20s, and just not going to really be able to win you a slate. All right, now let's get into some of the liked players here. At quarterback, I got Geno Smith. He's a guy that I'm interested in. I did my, fastest games. Geno and Seattle and Miami were just outside of that. They were the fourth fastest on this DraftKings slate. And I do have a little bit of interest. They're going back in Seattle. I think you can still target Miami. Skylar Thompson beat out Mike White, who we have seen have some success in the NFL as far as throwing the ball. And what's going to likely happen with Miami is they're going to be hyper-focused on Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and A-Chain. So I think if Miami is able to get a little offense going, then Geno could be a little interesting. Now, this is a little bit more of a long shot. I don't love it, but throwing it out there, I do have some interest at 5,600 and pretty much being unowned. Next, we got Lamar Jackson versus the Dallas Cowboys. He went nuts first game, had 122 rushing yards, put up 29. Next game, he only rushed the ball 5 times and 48 or 45 yards. They lost. They're 0-2. They need a win. I think that will allow them to unlock Lamar's legs a little bit. And if they get behind, he's going to be scrambling for points. He's going to be throwing, get those attempts up, and the fantasy points follow. I'm absolutely interested in this spot. Dallas Cowboys have a solid defense, but at home, that offense, at least last year, put up 30-plus points, a ton. And that could just force the Ravens to really push the pace and push the scoring. So I am absolutely interested in Lamar Jackson. The tight ends are in a good spot. Zay Flowers has been super consistent over the last 68. And then I think Rashad Bateman is a very interesting, cheap, low-owned dart throw that you could stack with him. His separation data has looked very good. He just hasn't got many opportunities, but I think there's going to be a couple games where he has a big one. So Lamar Jackson's interesting. Next, we got C.J. Stroud. I really do like C.J. Stroud this week quite a bit. One, Vikings haven't been great. They've been allowing quarterbacks, to get some yards. The offense has done enough to keep them into games. And this is it's one of the faster paced games of the week, and it's one that I think could get a little wild. So it's definitely a game I am interested in. Stroud has been better in domes, and he has so many weapons, and there's no Mixon, no Dameon Pierce. It's going to be Cam Akers. Cam Akers looked absolutely awful last year. I'm still probably going to have some of him in DFS just because of how cheap he is, but he looked awful last year. And I think the most likely option is they just lean into this passing game in a good environment, in a good matchup, and C.J. Stroud goes nuts. So I am very interested in Stroud. Next, we got Dak Prescott. It is one of my favorite games of the week, and he's in a great spot versus the Baltimore Ravens. They're 1-1. They need a win. The Ravens need a win. I think there is shootout potential in this game as both teams can make big plays happen. So I'm interested. The other thing is Cowboys can't really run the ball, and I think they're really going to struggle against this Ravens team to run the ball. So it's really going to come down to CeeDee Lamb, Jake Ferguson, Dak Prescott to see if they can get it going. So very interested in Dak. And then I just got to throw out the cheapie. I talked about him a little bit. Skylar Thompson. Now, I don't love it, but in a playoff game in 2022, he had 220 yards. He has hyper-focused on Hill at times. He beat out Mike White. I don't think he's going, to do anything that wild. But I wanted to put him here more so to say that even that he's starting, I'm not fading the Miami pieces. I think there's upside in Achane, Hill, and Waddle. Still, it's just, not as comfy to click. All right. Let's get over on FanDuel and our highest owned quarterbacks. We got Kyler, who we talked about, Lamar, Derek Carr, Jalen, CJ Stroud. We didn't talk about Jared Goff at all, so let's do it. I think it is, the highest game total of the week, so you have to have some consideration here. They can absolutely do it through the air, but this Lions team MO is that they want to run the ball. They want to kill you in the trenches, and I think they're going to be this game. And that's my one worry about Jared Goff and why I'm not really going there much right now. It's just I like the running backs better in this situation. So that's my 2 cents. But, hey, when you have a 51-point total, those points have to happen sometimes. And if they happen through the air, then he could have a huge game. So it's not out of the realm of possibility, but just not where I'm focused right now. Next, let's get over to running back. Our high owned, we got Jordan Mason at 30% owned. So the thing I want to say about Mason is he has been absolutely great. His prices came up. He is $6,200 now. So he's right around the range of a bunch of good running backs. He's had 2 good weeks. My issue, George Kittle is questionable. He has had 10 rushes when George Kittle was not on the field. He averaged 3.5 yards a carry on those running attempts. Without Kittle, he's at 5.6. With Kittle, he's at 5.6. Without, he's at 3.5. Kittle's unlikely. There is a decent chance that this running game does not work quite as well as it has before. Now, we are versus the Rams, and teams have ran all over the Rams, so there absolutely is some interest in him still. I just want to preface, and I want to give some reason why, you could possibly fade Jordan Mason as a high-owned guy. He is high-owned for good reason. He's been great, but I think there are some reasons to fade him in this spot. Next, we got Alvin Kamara, 25% owned, 7.5K. The guy has been absolutely wild. There's nothing else you can say. He's been good. The spot's good. It's one of the highest game totals. While they aren't one of the, 2 of the fastest teams in the league, they are fast enough that they can get it done, and they're super efficient. So I like it. This offense has been humming. I don't mind going to Kamara at all. So we can just move it on. Devon Achane. So Mostert is unlikely to play. Jeff Wilson got banged up last week. If Achane is getting this type of workload that he got last week, 22 carries, 7 targets, he's just going to crush fantasy. And I like this spot versus the Seahawks. I am absolutely fine playing Achane. I hope some touts are saying don't play him, don't give him a chance because no Tua, because I want his ownership to come down a little bit. I'm absolutely in on Achane. I like him. he's in a good spot. All right, I think we should just put both Gibbs and David Montgomery together. Both of Gibbs is high owned. Montgomery is one of my favorite pivots on this slate. The high scoring game. I think they're going to be able to run all over Arizona. And it's not like they use Montgomery as just the goal line back and Gibbs is just, change of pace back. They just rotate these guys. So either one can have a huge game. Heck, both can have a huge game. They could just absolutely crush Arizona on the ground and both go nuts. Absolutely think that's possible. And these two running backs, I am absolutely targeting and trying to get into my lineups, both Jamar Gibbs and David Montgomery. Saquon Barkley, still one of the higher owned guys, just a little bit less. I'm all in. This is a game that I like a lot. And without A.J. Brown, he is just going to get more work. 5 targets, 22 rushes, 24 rushes, 2 targets the first game. The workload is good. Now, the Saints front has been very good. They're only allowing 3.1 yards a carry or something like that. But it's been versus some pretty bad running teams. So Cowboys can't run the ball. Carolina can't run the ball. So I'm not putting too much weight in that. And Saquon Barkley is legit. The offensive line is good. The offense is good. I don't mind trying to go against that Saints offense. I'm just kind of surprised to see him still 12% owned. I thought he would be a little lower than that. Derrick Henry, you can do it. He's going to get his. He had 19 touches. That is enough for him to go nuts. I just don't absolutely love this spot, but he can get his. I don't mind it. Zach Charbonnet, he's definitely one of the guys I'm interested. I like this game a little bit. He got it done through 19 touches and a touchdown last time. He just wasn't very efficient. However, it was a Patriots team that is decent on the ground. And Miami has given it up a little bit on the ground. So I am interested in Charbonnet. He is the guy. He's going to get a ton of work. And for that, I'm interested in. He's only 6K. There's reasons to go there. Zamir White, 5,500. He's one of my favorite plays of the week. Look, Antonio Pierce came out saying they want to give this guy 20 touches a game. What did he do when he got that kind of workload? Ending the season, he had 85 yards and a touchdown, 145 yards. He had 106 yards, 121 yards. So I think in this matchup versus a porous Carolina defense, that Zamir White is going to get his, and I'm super interested in him, and I hope he stays low owned because he's definitely a piece that I want to push into my lineups. I think the Raiders want to keep just the game close and pound the ball, and if they have a lead, they're definitely going to be pounding the ball. So far, 15 touches week 1, 12 touches week 2, but Pierce did come out saying they want to pound the ball and they want to get him 20 touches. I'm going to go with that and hope it kind of happens because 5,500 is cheap for the matchup versus Carolina and that much workload. So I'm interested there. Next, we got Tony Pollard versus the Green Bay Packers. Packers have generally been a team you can run against. Jonathan Taylor had some success before just not being used at the end of the game for whatever reason. And he looked good against Chicago, looked good against the Jets. I think he can come out and play another solid game versus Green Bay. Tajay Spears is banged up a little bit. Pollard's been a workhorse. I'm intrigued. I don't, fully love the spot, but I'm interested for sure. Now, this is a weird one. Donta Foreman, 4,400. He, after not really playing week 1, he came out, got 15 touches. He's only 4,400. Now he's in a very, very good spot. Look, Jerome Ford is their number one running back. He's going to get most of the work, but I think that Foreman is going to steal goal line looks. And if the team has a lead, they're going to just lean on Foreman to, bulldoze the other team. And this is a spot versus the Giants that could absolutely happen. Every single year, there's a game or two where Foreman goes nuts. He did it last year. He had 3 touchdowns. He had another game where he had 92 yards and a touchdown. He's absolutely possible of those big games, and I think he is a low-owned pivot that is a little interesting. It's risky, but I think there's a pathway. And last one, I just got to bring up Cam Akers here. He's 4,700. He's only 4K on FanDuel. It looks like he's going to get the start, and at those prices, being a starting running back, you got to consider it a little bit. He had 8 touches coming in, in the third quarter or something last week. So I think he is of interest. I don't love the spot for him, but he's just too cheap not to talk about. Getting over to FanDuel, our high owned, we got Bijan Robinson. He is in that last game. The Chiefs versus the Falcons. And I just realized that when we talked about the quarterbacks, I didn't bring up Patrick Mahomes in that game. Got to touch on that. I think Mahomes is in a very interesting spot. Without Pacheco, they're going to have to go to the air a little bit more. And while the Falcons have 2 very good safeties, you got to trust Patrick Mahomes a little bit to air it out when he has a little bit better weapons than he has had, say, last year. Definitely a little interested in Patty Mahomes there. All right, go back to running back. Bijan Robinson. I don't love this spot for him. Chiefs are good to stop the run. He could do it through the air, and that's how he's going to have to do it, I think, in this game. I'm fine by it. I just don't really love the spot. And at 8,500, I don't want to get there too much. I may a little bit, but it's not like a big fade for me. But I also don't want the 27% ownership that much. Everybody else on the high own area we talked about, we might as well talk about James Conner. Don't love this spot for him just because that Lions D, the front is nasty, and I think he's going to struggle to get it going on the ground. Now, I do have to bring up the fact that he is used in the passing game, had 33 yards the first game, had several games down the stretch last year where he got it done in the passing game, but I don't love him, especially if he's at 10% owned. I'd want him less if I was going to play him. Now, getting over to wide receiver, our high-owned Devonta Smith, 6,900 versus the Saints. This is one of those high-owned spots I don't truly love. There's a couple things here. We had Covey playing for for Philadelphia last game versus Atlanta. He took a lot of the slot stuff that Devonta Smith was getting. If he's playing again and starting, then Smith is out wide again, and the Saints are just good versus the wide receiver one. Also, Marshawn Lattimore was back at practicing this week, and if that's the case, it's just going to be a very tough game for Devonta Smith. Now, he's going to get targeted a ton, so I'm interested in him. I think the floor is, relatively high. I just don't think a ceiling game is coming out of him, and that's my worry here. I would rather go to Dallas Goedert or Saquon Barkley to get the points and get access to the Eagles than I would Devonta Smith. So that's my 2 cents. I'm going to have a little bit of him because there's no A.J. Brown, but I'm trying to limit how much of him I get. Juwan Jennings, he's the WR2 for the 49ers. I mean, the Rams have been awful. I don't mind Juwan Jennings whatsoever, especially at 4,100. We've seen him be able to put up 20 before. Can he do it again? I think so. Is it likely? No. But at least there's that kind of ceiling there. He is a little bit more of a high floor or high median projection than he is a ceiling option, though. And that's the one thing I would say about that spot for him. Brandon Ayuk versus the Rams. I mean, if Kittle's out, he's the only star now. It's going to be him and Mason, and I'm definitely in on playing some Brandon Ayuk. Rams don't scare me that much as a secondary. and Ayuk is good. He's also now, 3 games in, missed preseason, but now he's had 3 weeks to kind of get back into football shape and all that. And I think his coming out party for this year is probably happening soon. JSN. Look, if I'm going to like Geno, I'm going to like JSN. I'm going to like Metcalf and Lockett. All of them are a little interesting. None of them am I forcing in, though, but I do like them. Not going to lie. And I've been waiting for this breakout, and it definitely happened last week with 16 targets. I think the cat's out of the bag, and he's going to get targeted heavily most weeks now. Rashid Shaheed versus Eagles. They've been using him all over, and this offense just looks amazing. They're in a dome. They're at home. Shaheed looks good again. So I can't hate it. He keeps getting those deep targets and getting in the end zone. Can it happen again? Absolutely. Is it going to happen every week? Absolutely not. But I am fine to go there. I would rather go Chris Olave. I think it's only a matter of time till Olave goes nuts, and he's only 1,000 more. I think the ceiling is way higher for Olave. So that's my 2 cents, but I like both of them. Jameson Williams, he's fine. I just worry that Detroit is going to run a ton, and that, he's still the second, third option on the passing side. Tank Dell, 5,200. He isn't my favorite piece of the Texans offense. However, I think they are going to try and get him going. I don't mind going here. I want pieces of this passing game. I just do prefer Nico Collins. I think Nico Collins is going under-owned, and I'm intrigued to go there. I don't mind Stephon Diggs. I don't mind Tank Dell. Fine with all of them, but I like Nico better. Amon-Ra is in a good spot. Don't mind going there. Now let's go to some pivots. Justin Jefferson versus Houston. Look, the way Houston versus Minnesota goes nuts is Justin Jefferson is breaking big plays, is getting it done. He has that 30-point upside. I don't think there's a lot of players on this slate that have that. And so I don't mind paying up the salary to get it if it also unlocks that Houston stack. So I think it's pretty interesting to go with Justin Jefferson. He's been absolutely crushing, and I don't mind it. Chris Godwin. My thing here, I also like Jalen McMillan. Patrick Surtain is likely going to be all over Mike Evans. If that is the case, Godwin and McMillan are getting extra targets. Godwin has been great so far, and I think that's going to continue this week as him and McMillan likely get extra targets coming his way, with Mike Evans just having a hard time. Amari Cooper, 6,100. I can't quit it. If you guys are just out on him, I get it, but he's had his chances. He has the most air yards in the league. He's also the highest in drops. He's missed a couple big plays just by a little bit. It's not as ugly as it looks on paper. Those big games are still there, I promise you. He's in a decent spot at low ownership. I'm willing to take a little bit of a chance. Nico Collins, we talked about, totally in on Collins. Tyreek, I think he's going to get hyper targeted, and for that reason I'm in, especially on a site like DraftKings where it's point PPR. I think there's a path to him getting 8-10 touches as they're just trying to make him get involved and give him a chance at yards after the catch. So I put all the Rams here, and it's just because I want to talk about them as a group. There's Demarcus Robinson, Tyler Johnson, and Jordan Whittington. Whittington is my favorite, price considered, out of them. Very, very likely that the Rams are going to have to throw a bunch. Kyren is obviously the number one option left in this Rams offense, but they're going to have to throw. Stafford's a very good quarterback. He can get these guys some points. And I think all of them have their spot in lineups with some solid upside because Stafford is their quarterback. Now we know Johnson and Demarcus Robinson aren't going to, be game breakers in the NFL. Jordan Whittington looked very good in preseason, and he's a rookie, so I lean to the unknown upside of him at a lower price point than the other two. The other two are way safer, though. Rashad Bateman, we talked about him. I'm interested in as a stack, 3,800. He's cheap. His separation numbers look very good. DK Metcalf, we talked about. George Pickens, I think, is interesting. He's had some tough matchups. He looked decent versus the Falcons, which is a solid D. Denver is another solid D, especially to the wide receiver one. He's got the Chargers now, which is another good defense, but he has game-breaking ability, and it's only a matter of time at his mid-5 price that he's going to break one, and it's gonna happen. I want to be before on him, before that big game, while he's low owned, before everybody else is, and I think there is a chance that it happens today. Lastly, Greg Dortch. What we've seen from the Lions is the middle of the field's been open. I think McBride and Greg Dortch are the best targets on this Cardinals offense. And at 4,500, I just wanted to throw him out there for you guys. Now, high-owned wide receivers here. We got to talk about Rashee Rice on FanDuel. Absolutely part of it. He has 9 targets and 6 targets, and now there's no Pacheco. I would expect him to be right around 10 targets. I don't mind him whatsoever. Deontay Johnson. No Bryce Young. It's Andy Dalton. So, maybe there's some upside unlocked there. And then we talked about everybody else. So we will move it on to tight end on DraftKings. Brock Bowers. What can you say about the guy? Right now at his price, he's still a weekly play, and he's in a good spot versus the Panthers. He's great. The only worry is that I just see them running the ball a ton in this game. Now, Bowers can still get it done. He hasn't got in the end zone yet, but you're looking at 17 targets in 2 games. They're obviously trying to get him involved and keeping him involved, so I'm fine with some Bowers. Trey McBride is my favorite tight end on this slate by far. Him versus the Lions, I'm totally in on. The middle of the field is the passing game, which Kyler needs to focus on. And that's all McBride. Jonnu Smith, not really there. Jake Ferguson, I think, is a great lower-owned tight end. Look, he's pretty much the second option in this Dallas passing game. He's off the injury report. All signs point to him being good. I think there's potential for, 6 to 10 targets, something like that. And at 4,500, if you're getting that in a very good game environment, I think you got to like it. I don't mind going to either of the Baltimore tight ends. Either they're just too cheap in a good game environment. 1 touchdown, which there should be plenty in this game, changes the slate for a tight end. Either of them can do it. And we know Andrews is a force. Lastly, we got Dallas Goedert. No A.J. Brown. We've talked about Devonta Smith could struggle. I think that then comes down to Barkley and Goddard being the ones with potential breakouts. And Greg Dulcich, I don't love it. I just got to bring up that he's only 2,900. He had 8 targets last week. Did nothing with it, but 8 targets is a lot. 3 week 1. 5.5 target a game average at 2,900 is a little bit interesting. So getting over to tight end. On FanDuel, Travis Kelce, 7,200. With no Pacheco, good safeties for Atlanta. There is a chance that I think Kelce kind of gets unlocked this week. a little bit interested in going with him with that setup. Now, getting over to defense. High owned, we got Steelers. Chargers offense hasn't got much going, except for just a brutally good running game. Herbert's a good quarterback, but he is limited. I get why the Steelers are going high owned. They're a solid defense, and it's going to be a low-scoring game. I don't mind it. I also don't mind the Chargers on the other side of that. Buccaneers, the other high-owned defense, 3K versus Denver. Denver just hasn't been able to get anything going through the air, on the ground, anything. So makes an obvious spot. 49ers, this defense is going to have to set up. The Rams' offensive line has just been decimated. Their playmakers decimated. There's potential here that they're really able to get after the quarterback. Bears versus Colts. This defense is very, very good. Anthony Richardson was not able to throw the ball. If they're able to limit the run, make him throw, there's some big-time upside from the D. Think Seahawks, you got to talk. It's versus Skylar Thompson. I mean, Skylar Thompson, the volatility in this game is huge, and one of the ways it could play out is the Seahawks just running over Miami and Skylar Thompson not being able to get anything done. High-owned defenses on FanDuel: Chargers, Steelers, Falcons, Broncos. Don't like Falcons. Don't really like the Broncos. Don't mind KC. If they bring pressure on Mahomes, I could see some trouble. Outside of that, same one-offs there. And that'll do it for us today. Hope you guys have a good one. Make sure, to use all our tools to figure out where you want to go. The team defense tool is starting to work now that we're 2 games through. As the season goes on, it'll only help more and more. You guys have a good one. We will be back next week. Peace.